And welcome back here to Live Now from Fox. I'm Andrew Kraft. Gotta keep an eye on this shot here that we have. Take a look at this. Uptown at Columbia University in New York City, as you can see there. A lot of NYPD officers kind of milling about. This is outside one of the, I believe, main campus buildings. This might even be Butler Library. So in the meantime, just want to get you up to speed on what happened. Dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters stormed Columbia University's Butler Library, interrupting students studying for exams and declaring the library a quote-unquote liberated zone here. So I want to put some of the video up from earlier this afternoon, and you can see the throng of protesters. So in the upper right-hand or left hand of your screen, that is a live picture. In the lower right hand of your screen, that is from about an hour ago. And you can see there kind of the melee that these protesters are causing. Now, Columbia University's public safety team responded by asking protesters for ID and warning of possible arrests for noncompliance while condemning the disruption of academic activities. So around 100 of them there, you see, stormed Butler Library on campus. That's video from Sky Fox in the lower right hand of your screen. Linda Schmidt from Fox 5, our reporter and friend there, says in a statement from Columbia she obtained, Columbia saying, it's completely unacceptable that some individuals are choosing to disrupt academic activities as our students are studying and preparing for exams here. So I have in front of me a statement from the acting president of Columbia University, Claire Shipman. Now remember, in the wake of all of those student protests that transpired last spring, that were really kicked off on the campus of Columbia, in the wake of that, mere months later, Minouche Shafik, the president at the time, resigned. And then an acting president was appointed just recently, just this year. That acting president also resigned. So there is a third leader of Columbia University in the wake of all these protests over the course of a year. Her name, Claire Shipman. She put out the statement that I was reading earlier. And so we've been seeing some of these protesters kind of walk out of the doors there. Let's take that full. And many of them are recognizable, as you know, if you've been following this story. They are donning kind of the traditional Palestinian head garb known as the keffiyeh. You see there a lot of the demonstrators do wear that. They do don that, kind of the black and white checkered headscarf. And many of them, of course, also have their face covered with either that keffiyeh or, say, like a COVID mask or something to kind of obscure their identities. So you see there a lot of NYPD officials and Columbia University police outside this building. I'm not entirely sure if this is Butler Library on campus or not, but it remains to be seen. Hopefully we'll hear from NYPD about whether people have been arrested, and if so, how many have been arrested. So we're also learning that this is from Columbia, that 2 public safety officers sustained injuries during all of this. Okay, I have right in front of me a new statement. This is a new statement from the acting president, Claire Shipman of Columbia University. She says this: the individuals who disrupted activities in Butler Reading Room 301 still refuse to identify themselves and leave the building. So apparently, according to President Shipman, there is some type of occupation going on of Butler Library at the moment. She goes on to say, due to the number of individuals participating in the disruption inside and outside the building, a large group of people attempting to force their way into Butler Library, creating a safety hazard, and what we believe to be the significant presence of individuals not affiliated with the university, Columbia has taken the necessary step of requesting the presence of NYPD to assist in securing the building and safety of our community. So that is why you see NYPD officers right now on the campus of Columbia University. This is literally the exact same repeat scenario that played out last year with Hamilton Hall. Those protesters, this time, different protesters, maybe some of the same, with another building on campus, Butler Library, Columbia calling in the NYPD to assist here. So the statement goes on to say, sadly, during the course of this disruption, 2 of our Columbia public safety officers sustained injuries during a crowd surge when individuals attempted to force their way into the building and into room 301. President Shipman says these actions are outrageous. Let's put up on the screen for you, if we could drop that shot there of St. Peter's so you can see this. Take a look at that. Take a look at all of those students trying to access, somewhat forcibly, Butler Library on campus. So I'm reading more from the statement from Acting President Shipman. She says individuals participating in the Reading Room 301 disruption were repeatedly asked for identification and to leave, and were repeatedly told that failure to comply would result in violations of our rules and policies and possible arrest for trespassing. We've been clear from the outset about applying our protocols and advising participants of the potential consequences of not complying. Requesting the presence of the NYPD is not the outcome we wanted, but it was absolutely necessary to secure the safety of our community. She says disruptions to our academic activities will not be tolerated and are violations of our rules and policies, saying this is especially unacceptable while our students study and prepare for final exams. Columbia strongly condemns violence on our campus, anti-Semitism, and all forms of hate and discrimination, some of which we witnessed today, says President Shipman. She says this, we are resolute that calls for violence or harm have no place at our university. We will continue to keep our community apprised as the situation evolves. So I don't have to remind you, maybe I do, that President Trump is waging a war on some of these Ivy League campuses in response and in relation to what we are seeing right now at Columbia. Columbia somewhat capitulating there. Remember, Harvard, not so much, taking some of those demands from the Trump administration to court in some of these various lawsuits. But that's the context to this story that we have to bring up. We'd be remiss if we did not. So as you can see there, more visuals, one live, the other kind of in replay here so you can get a sense of what's going on. Now, just yesterday, Columbia announced that nearly 180 people whose salaries had been funded by federal research grants would be laid off as the effect of the Trump administration's cuts on the campus deepen. So this is all a part of this story. Now, citing intense strain on Columbia's finances and research mission, the university's acting president, Claire Shipman, said in the announcement yesterday, Columbia would also be, quote, running lighter footprints of research infrastructure in some areas affected by the cuts. So there have been cuts in the wake of some of these threats to cut off federal funding to Columbia. Some of those threats have been made good by the Trump administration with regard to cuts to research grants and the like here. But these are Gaza war protesters and demonstrators. But that is one of a piece. The rationale President Trump and the Trump White House have used to go after some of these Ivy Leagues, like Columbia, like Harvard and others, is how they have responded to some of these, what critics say are anti-Semitic acts and incidents on campus. So we wanted to get this in for you as well. Let's take this live yet again here. You see some of these NYPD officials coming out of the library. Okay, look at, we have right here, look at some of these protesters. They are detained. Look at that. They have their hands behind them. Many of them, their faces obscured, many of them donning the traditional Palestinian headscarf, the keffiyeh. Remember, we don't know how many are students or how many are non-students, but you see there, the NYPD making progress. Take a look at that. After this kind of quasi-attempt at an occupation of a campus building on Columbia is underway as we speak live right now. Take a look at that. A lot of them are, their hands are kind of hog-tied behind them with those plastic ties there. Let's listen to this shot here. This is natural sound. Let's listen. Okay, so you hear some of that familiar chanting we've heard so often at some of these demonstrations: no justice, no peace. Some of it, the rhetoric is quite anti-police in nature, as you would imagine. Many of these demonstrators now detained, arrested, not entirely sure what they'll be charged with. You'll remember that a majority of the protesters from last year, the district attorney there in New York City, Alvin Bragg, dismissed almost all of the charges against those protesters at the time here. We'll see if that scenario repeats itself. We'll have to just wait and see. We're still very early on in this situation. So Fox 5 New York on the scene there. I believe that's their camera.